So, the last conversation before lunch will be a panel that will be the donors conversation, the role of donors in supporting SME growth. I will come and introduce our moderator and our panelists, but before that, we have a report, the MSMEs Report by Mokera Masita of MSMEs. Mokera, please come up. A round of applause for Mokera as she comes, tafadhali.
Right, thank you. I'm incredibly excited to be here to talk to you about the Kenya MSME study. I had a moment of panic just because when we had the little exercise that Amani made us do of making a fruit salad, I got a little too enthusiastic about it, so I really sang very loudly and I almost lost my voice. Then I realized, oh, there was a panel in between, so I've managed to get some first aid, and so now I'm able to talk. So thank God for small mercies. And Amani just tried to set me up now to say that we're going to go for lunch on time. I'm not making any promises, but let's see how that goes. There is meant to be projection of the deck. Oh, great. Okay, super. So this is a study that we conducted in 2021 that we had the privilege of doing, and I just want to acknowledge some of my team members who are here today as well and who are very instrumental in implementing this study. So if you could just wave, just show where you're at. Thank you very much. This study is, how do I say, it's massive. It's massive, and I'll tell you a little bit, why that is. And so when I heard that I have 10 minutes to talk you through this study, it's a bit of a miracle. So definitely we will not be able to cover the depth and breadth of this study, but I will try to give you some tidbits. I did manage to negotiate an extra 5 minutes to the 10 minutes to be able to deliver something. So it's still going to be lightning speed, but then the 10 minutes was going to be lightning speed on steroids. So I'm going to try as much as possible to go through 4 things on this. So you can have the next slide. So we're going to look at the background, we're going to talk about typologies, and you'll see very soon how that is. We're going to talk about the impact of COVID-19 and the COVID businesses. So I'll start at the beginning, on to the next slide, just because I heard a very credible rumor that it's the very best place to start. Let's go on to the objectives. So the overarching reason why we decided to do this study is that we wanted to gain an in-depth understanding of the MSME space in Kenya, specifically looking at key barriers to MSME survival and growth, and within that look at things like financial services, business advisory services, and how those impact or influence the MSMEs in terms of survival, growth, and innovation. So generally speaking, that's what we were looking to do. The study design, next slide. So this is a phased study. And the very first thing that we did is we spent some time doing some literature review. That was the first step, because with any research, it's good to build on existing knowledge as opposed to going and reinventing the wheel. I'm sure, as many of you are probably aware, that research is not cheap, it's quite expensive. So then you don't want to reinvent the wheel, but rather you want to fill the gaps and add value to what there is already. It's noteworthy would be the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics study on MSMEs that was conducted in 2016. So in terms of magnitude, this study could compare in magnitude to that. And so between 2016 and 2021, to the best of my knowledge, there has not been another study of this magnitude that has been conducted on the MSME space. One of the things that makes this study also quite interesting is that we wanted to spend some time thinking about how to categorize or how to group MSMEs beyond the traditional, just saying micro, small and medium enterprises, but possibly map out other metrics that are very relevant in terms of the groupings, because not all micros are the same, not all small businesses are the same. And so what we did with the literature is also explore different ways in which we can categorize these businesses, and I'll share that in a short while. So once we were done with our literature review, we went into our second phase. This was our primary data collection. So this was a blended approach that we used. And so we had some quantitative aspects in terms of a national random survey across all the 47 counties in Kenya, and were able to speak to 8,277 business owners, and then we're also able to conduct some 20 qualitative case studies. I think yesterday one of the things that was mentioned is that it's great to have an opportunity where the MSMEs can actually tell their stories. And so with research that is also possible, and so with this 20 case studies, it was an opportunity to engage in depth with the MSMEs and have them tell their stories. So we have some very beautifully written up stories, 20 of them, of the different businesses that represent the different typologies that are there in the sample. The interesting thing though is that also, still on the study design, is that as much as we spoke to 8,000 business owners, the number of businesses that are represented there are many more, because one person does not necessarily do just one business. So you find that there were people who had 2 businesses or 3 businesses, and where possible, we were able to collect data on more than just one business. And there you have the sample structure, so different ways in which you can split and slice the data and the different lenses that you can look at it in terms of gender, in terms of age, in terms of location. So all that is something that you're able to do with the data analysis. So let's look very quickly at the typologies. So remember, this is something that we developed out of literature review, as well as nested with key informant interviews, where we wanted to explore the different ways of categorizing. And then we went and did a random study, and then applied the metrics to the sample that we had, just to see who fell in what category. And so one of the categories that we have, next slide, is livelihood sustaining businesses. So these are, the very small micro businesses. There's low skill, they're very survivalist. It's about really earning some basic income. And when we applied the metrics to our sample, we found we had 45% of these. The other category is skill-based micro enterprises. So these are still micro, but what sets them apart from the livelihood-sustaining ones is that here the entrepreneurs have a technical skill set. They could have either an established or traditional business model, but then they are a step ahead because of the skill set, and then it's larger retail. So, bakeries, for example, they now have maybe a few employees, and they're often family businesses. So these, when we applied the metrics, we found we had 26% of them in our sample. And then we have the successful MSEs. And these were 19% in our sample. So these are either micro or small businesses. These are more well-established, if you will, and they're growing, but they still remain informal. So that's what ties them to the other 2 categories that I've just talked about, the informality. But they are a skill-based business, but that is more mature. They have a stronger entrepreneurial mindset, and they're really looking at growth and chasing that growth. So that's the successful MSC. Then we also had a moderate growth SME. So these are small or medium, but now they're mostly formal. And then they've achieved some scale. You'll find them across many different sectors, and they have growth ambitions. So some of the ones we talked to or had the privilege of speaking to, you would find, maybe have opened branches in other counties, are looking at different ways in which they can scale, and they have some level of formality. Finally, we have high growth startups. These were 6% in our sample and were either micro or small. There's a lot of innovation that goes around with this category of businesses, and they have very strong growth ambitions. So many of them you'll find are tech-based and have disruptive business models. The reason I've put up that picture there of the Boda Boda operator is that not all of them are tech-based, and this happened to be one of our case studies. So this is a Boda Boda operator in Kilifi County, and very interesting that he started his business during COVID, managed to grow it during COVID, bought 2 more Boda Bodas, managed to access finance and servicing those loans without default. So this was really very, very inspiring. So this was one of the high growth startups that we had the opportunity to interview. So when I looked at the theme of the Big Baraza, which is, owning the times, opportunity in adversity, and we thought, obviously, COVID-19, that's a huge curveball that, the universe has swung at all of us, and businesses, notwithstanding, are part and parcel of that. And one of the things that we did, having collected this data during the pandemic, is obviously understanding something about businesses and how they were operating during COVID-19. And some of the questions we asked them were around what impact this had on their businesses. So if we could just go on to the next slide. So interestingly, there was 11% that said, no impact for me. I'm still doing business as usual. So I've not really felt any disruption of sorts with COVID. And a lot of these were, businesses in the food industry. So they didn't experience any impact. There were those that had some form of impact, but then it balanced out. So for example, school-related businesses, people who were selling uniforms. So when schools reopened, there was a huge boost for some of these businesses, and then it all balanced out. So we had cases, even examples of businesses where, they did very well, and they were even able to do some corporate social responsibility in terms of providing some personal protective equipment, masks, sanitizers for free, and distributing that to people who needed them. So it was quite interesting to see that there were SMEs who were actually stepping into that space to make a difference. So then there was definitely low moments. So quite, the rest of the, proportion of the sample said, yes, we had low moments in business, expectedly. So low profits or sales, fewer orders were coming in. The curfew and transport restrictions, that affected businesses. You couldn't restock as and when you needed because maybe there's a delay in supplies. If the curfew is happening at a particular time, you cannot get your supplies in good time. There was also workers not able to get to work. So for example, matatus could now not carry people at full capacity. So that meant there were delays in how people got to work. There were also people who had to ask their staff to take pay cuts, so there's a whole lot of, things that come with that. Delayed payments, you've given credit facility to your customers, they're not able to pay, they're asking for more time, and so on and so forth. So there were a myriad of challenges that majority of the businesses went through as a result of COVID. Something really interesting, though, is we also found out, in the process of gathering some stats and some information about these businesses, one of the things that we asked, and if you could just go on to the next slide, is when this business was started. And so it was quite interesting to learn that there was 26% of the sample were businesses that were actually started during COVID. So regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the adversity, there's 26% of individuals who said, I'm going to start a business. And the reasons for that, the 4 top reasons, the main reason being I needed to earn an income to support myself and my family. So remembering that, certain people's jobs came to an end, their employers couldn't pay them anymore. So people said, okay, what option do I have? I need to start a business to find some income for myself. Those who took pay cuts, then they needed something to supplement their income. So 24% of them said, I started a business. There are others who just saw an opportunity and ran with it, and if you see the nature of businesses right there, you'll see there was wholesale, there was retail trade, and some of the things that were doing really well were electronics and phones. Remember, the world suddenly became virtual, and so everybody needed a gadget of sorts that they could connect to the internet with, and so anybody who was doing a business in that space saw it flourish. And so there are people who jumped in and said, I can do a business in this, and really grabbed the opportunity. The other thing that's quite interesting there is that these businesses that were started during the COVID pandemic, 38% of them are registered businesses. So not only were people saying that I'm going to start a business, I'm going to, put my best foot forward and start a business, I'm actually going to go ahead and register it. So as much as they're the smaller proportion, it's quite interesting to see. And I know some of the issues that came up even yesterday were, the issues of registration and the fear of, taxation and things like that. Even when we were doing this survey, we covered both registered and unregistered businesses, and we had to also provide a lot of assurance, to some of the businesses that we're going to, and even at household level, that we're not coming from the Kenya Revenue Authority, and you're not going to get yourself into trouble by talking to us and telling us that you're unregistered. So it's quite interesting to see that there were businesses that started and also went ahead and actually registered. So very quickly on the next section, so access to finance and business support and training. Remember, we're really one of the reasons we did this survey is because we wanted to see how this influences their growth, their survival, their propensity for job creation. So looking at specifically the businesses, if we can just go down, looking specifically at the businesses that were started during the pandemic, we found that as much as 89% of them had bank accounts or mobile money. Most of them, 79%, used their personal savings or other income to start the business. They did not access the startup capital from a formal source, like a bank or a SACCO. Those who borrowed, the remaining 21% who did borrow some money to start the business, they did it from informal sources, like family and friends. However, it was also interesting to see that while in operation, now that they'd already started the business, there's a 19% who then went on to take some loans to invest further in the business, and they did get to borrow from formal sources like the commercial banks and SACCOs. So case in point, our Kilifi Boda Boda operator who was actually able to access financing from a bank to expand his business during COVID. Business support and training, most of them did not get any business support or training. There was a 2% that claimed to receive government support in this respect. But then the interest was there, the desire was there to receive some kind of support and training. So majority of them, 79%, said, yes, if the support is there, that's something that we would definitely value and we would want to partake in. And most of them, in terms of topics, they just wanted to know how they could expand their businesses. Finally, looking at job creation. So out of these businesses, 26% of our sample that started their businesses during COVID, 3,329 jobs were created. In terms of the individual entrepreneur, but also some of them hiring 1 or 2 people. Again, case in point, our Kilifi Boda Boda operator who then had additional 2 bikes and needed to hire 2 riders to support. Self-declared growth, so 60% of them claimed they had experienced growth. So, I think that really represents, opportunity in adversity and, just owning the times, because this is a situation that we all found ourselves in. And I'm going to stop there. I hope I have not done more than the 15 minutes, but the good news is that we will still have lunch, even if we're a little bit late for it. Thank you very much.